A Madison and Congolese-based coffee company has organized an emergency relief response for those who lost loved ones or whose homes were destroyed in the Democratic Republic of Congo floods and landslides. Mighty Peace Coffee says a few of its colleagues were impacted in the deadly tragedy. NBC 15's Cameron Kelly sat down with two of the company's partners and learned more about their plan.
Over 500 people have died and more than 3,000 homes have been destroyed, and people are still missing.
People were at work, people were at the market living their lives, and this happened suddenly.
7,719 miles away from Madison, partner Joachim Mungaga lost 9 family members in the Democratic Republic of Congo landslides. His colleague Jim Ngokwey translates for him.
Really wanted to stress the humanity, like people like you and I, people like everyone else, living their lives, doing their best to provide for themselves and their families, and their lives changed basically in a blink, and like suddenly.
Mungaga also lost business partners to the deadly disaster in the territory of Calais.
The farmer organization that he leads, called Sopagdi, they lost 91 members. So 91 members lost their lives. So, mothers, fathers. So there's a lot of orphans that, people he worked with, that they collaborate together.
Chief Quality Officer Linda Mugaruka says there are people on the response team helping to assess the area.
And a lot of infrastructure damage. So they have a team on the ground that's been going back and forth to Calais, which is not too far from where Linda is.
She wanted to remind people Congolese's coffee supply will be impacted, which stops beans from being sent to Madison's coffee shops like Barrique's.
Some of the regions that were affected are known for their coffee specifically. So the coffee community and the coffee industry brings a lot to the local economy. So she's really asking for empathy, support, and solidarity so that the local coffee people and sector can recover.
Cameron Kelly reporting. Actions Calais is seeking to raise now $80,000 to provide health services, medication, housing, and funerals for victims. If you would like to help, visit NBC15.com for more information.